Hi. So today's topic for editorial discussion is with regards to TB, that is tuberculosis. So it is based upon an article that came in yesterday, that is this Sunday's news, that Sunday's FAQ news that talks about nutrition, that links about nutrition and TB together. So yes, TB, we have come across this term everywhere when we see people, like they are having cough and all. We used to call it as TB. He or she has TB, so that is why he is continuously coughing and all these things used to be termed. Yes. Now, what is TB? So, TB is a multi-systemic infectious disease. It's a multi-systemic infectious disease means it affects a lot of systems within our body. So, that is what multi-systemic infectious disease means, and it is a bacterial disease caused by a bacteria known as Mycobacterium tuberculosis. For the very first time, a person called Koch has identified this particular disease, and this disease TB is also known as Koch's disease. It's also known as Koch's disease, and it affects a lot of people in India. For example, the TB burden in India is very high. WHO has said that around 27.9 million people in India have TB. In its earlier report, it has said that around 27.9 million people in India are affected with TB. So this is what the WHO reports, and the TB burden in India is also very high. We can know this by seeing a lot of statistics around TB, and there are also various programs to tackle TB, and we have also set various targets to reduce or eliminate TB in the coming future. So yes, so we will see what are the types of TB that is existent, that is in existence. So yes, there can be various heads under which this TB can be classified. So the first head is based on its activity, whether the bacteria or whether the effects of the bacteria are active or latent. So that is the first type, active TB and latent TB. Active TB in the sense, yes, the microbe is present, the bacteria is present within the host, and it has started to show its face, that is the symptoms have started and the person is suffering from TB. So this is what active TB is. And latent TB is, yes, the bacteria is present within the person but symptoms have not yet started to show. The bacteria is present but it has not yet started to show its face. So this is what active and latent TB are. And next, based on the organ affected, it can be classified as there are various types of organs, right? TB affects all organs. If it takes a particular organ, it can affect any organ for that matter. It will not only affect the lungs, it can affect any organ. So yes, based on the organ affected also, these are divided into various types, and one of the most common type of organ based TB is that of pulmonary TB that affects the lungs. Most common is pulmonary TB that affects the lungs. So based on organ also, they are divided into various types. Yes, next is drug resistance. So we all know this drug resistance is a threat that looms humanity at large. It is a nightmare that looms humanity at large. We have seen a lot of, we have learned a lot about antimicrobial resistance and all. So yes, Mycobacterium tuberculosis also faces drug resistance. Drug resistance in the sense it gets used to the drug. The drug will become ineffective against this particular bacteria. So that is what drug resistance is. And drug resistant TB is also divided into two types, that is MDR and XDR TB. So MDR is multi-drug resistant TB, and XDR is extensively drug resistant TB. So what is multi-drug resistant TB is that if it is ineffective, if the first line drugs, there are two types of drugs, the first line drugs and second line drugs. The first line drugs, that is two types of first line drugs, isoniazid and rifampicin. Isoniazid and rifampicin is ineffective against MDR. If it is ineffective against a particular type of bacteria, that is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, it is termed as MDR TB. If the first line drugs of isoniazid and rifampicin do not work, it is known as MDR TB. Second line drugs and all, they will work. It is not these second line drugs, they are not ineffective to second line drugs are not ineffective against MDR TB. Only first line drugs, that is rifampicin, isocyanide. If these are ineffective, it is termed as MDR TB. And coming to extensively drug resistant TB, XDR TB, it is resistant to both first and second line drugs. The first line drugs are isoniazid, rifampicin and fluoroquinolones. The third type of drugs, isoniazid, rifampicin and fluoroquinolones. So apart from this, it is also resistant to second line drugs such as ceperomycin, amikacin and kanamycin. So it is also, XDR-TB is also resistant to second line drugs such as amikacin, ceperomycin and kanamycin. So these are the different types of TBs and how TB is caused. I hope you have a general idea of how TB is caused and what are the types of TB. Now we'll get into the programs that India has to tackle this particular disease called as the tuberculosis. The first program, there are a lot of programs to be named. We are just going to see some of the major programs that have been used in India in our fight against TB. So yes, the first program is NICSHE. NICSHE Poshan Yojana is a program that tries to improve the nutritional benefits or nutritional value for TB patients. What this program does is that it will give rupees 500 as direct benefit transfer to a TB patient, like to improve their nutritional needs and all. Because nutrition is one of the biggest challenges while tackling TB. Nutrition is one of the biggest challenges tackling TB, and there are also reports that suggest TB can be reduced by increasing nutrition and all these things. So yes, that is what this particular program seeks to achieve. NICSHE Poshan Yojana. And next in line we have this thing called as the National Strategic Plan for Elimination to End TB. National Strategic Plan to End TB. The thing is, it sets up a date of 2025 to eliminate TB by 2025. Even WHO has set a date of 2030. WHO has set a date to eliminate or end TB by 2030, and India has become, we have become very strong in our approach. We have very good tools at our disposal so that we can achieve the end TB program in 2025. So we have set a target, but yes, there are challenges in achievement also. So that is what the second program is, National Strategic Plan to End TB. And we also have this thing called as the Pradhan Mantri TB Mukt Bharat scheme, TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan, that also sets up a target date and tries to eliminate TB. And we also have this, and we have a lot of other campaigns also. We have this End TB campaign, National Tuberculosis Elimination Program, a lot of other programs. And we also have this particular program called as the TB Harega Desh Jitega campaign. So yes, these are the various programs and campaigns that we have at our disposal to eliminate TB. Now yes, we have a lot of these programs, but these programs are also marked by a lot of challenges, right? So yes, anything is that there are a lot of challenges also, and TB elimination program also has various challenges. Not talking about a specific program here, but in general, elimination of TB is faced with a lot of challenges here. We'll see the challenges now. So yes, challenges. The first challenge is the lack of judicial use of drugs. Lack of judicial use of drugs in the sense, a lot of private healthcare, a lot of private sector health providers, what they do is that they use these drugs, for example, these first line drugs such as the isoniazid and rifampicin, they use at their own disposal. There is no judicial use. Even for very low strains, such heavy drugs or heavy doses of drugs have been used, and when there is lack of judicial use, when there is unjudicial use of such drugs, the drug may become ineffective. The bacteria will form resistance against the drug, leading to further complications such as the MDR and XDR-TB. So a lack of judicial use of drugs, especially the first line drugs, is a very big problem when it comes to tackling TB in India. Oh yes, lack of judicial use of drugs. The large scale use of unpasteurized milk. Yes, India, we used to love our unpasteurized milk. Yes, in India we used to love chai, coffee and all these things. And it is done from pasteurized milk, most probably. Pasteurized milk is heating milk, like earlier and all. If you take a milk packet, not only today also, if you take a milk packet, you will see it as pasteurized milk. Pasteurization is nothing but heating the milk to a certain degree so that the bacteria and other organisms that are in that milk are killed. So this is what pasteurization is. But what we are doing today is that we blame these packet milks and we move on to cow's milk. We say even in cities also people used to get cow's milk directly from the the person who has the cow and all these things. These milks are unpasteurized. Unpasteurized in the sense they are not heated so it has a lot of microbes in it. So we use this unpasteurized milk on a large scale. Sometimes even for milkshakes we use unpasteurized milk and all. All these things happen. So these unpasteurized milk, it contains a lot of bacteria, including this bacteria, and this large scale use of this milk will lead to further complications in India with respect to the TB. So yes, large scale use of unpasteurized milk. Lack of awareness in the sense, yes, people when people cough, we used to say it as TB sometimes, but people are not aware. They are not going to check is it TB or not. They just leave it, especially in the rural side and all. They feel like this is just a cough, this is just a dry cough, this may be due to cold, but they are not getting into the complexities of disease called as TB. They know the word TB, yes, even in rural sites people use the word TB, but they are not actually aware of it in the sense they don't seek medical attention, or they don't take TB seriously. TB is TB is a killer. They don't take TB seriously. So these are the major issues. The lack of awareness is a major issue when it comes to handling TB. Yes, the third major challenge. And the fourth is data gaps. Data gaps in the sense, yes, official data gaps itself. There are a lot of gaps. For instance, WHO, what it says is that there are around 119,000 TB patients in India. In a recent report, it said 119,000 drug resistant TB patient in India. This is what the WHO said in a recent report. And what the Indian government, our data says is that only 64,000% of people are faced with or are affected by drug resistant TB. So there are also a lot of data gaps. Once these data gaps are filled, TB can be reduced. For example, if I only know this 64,000 people are affected by TB, I will only target these 64,000 people. Double the number are left unnoticed. So yes, but TB burden, we'll see that TB burden has reduced, but in fact, in reality, TB burden has not reduced unless and until these data gaps are being filled, yes, or bridged. Thing is, yes, data gaps. And undernutrition and traditional diagnosis. Undernutrition, recently there has been a link between nutrition and tuberculosis also. There have been various studies also. What one study suggests that what WHO says is that by increasing the nutritional value of food consumed by Indians, 70% of TB burden can be reduced in India. So this is what the WHO itself says. And there are a lot of other reports also that suggest that links nutrition with reduction in TB cases. For example, even TB patients in North America and Europe, when they had a very nutritious diet, they felt the effects of TB very less. So this is how nutrition is linked with TB, and we all know that India faces a lot of malnutrition amongst its children, not only children but also the other people also, the adults also. They are faced with a lot of undernutrition. They don't get the nutritional value from their food. They don't have a balanced food. For many even 3 meals a day is still a dream. Yes, that is the petty state of nutrition in India. People don't even get nutrition from the meal that they have. Yes, undernutrition and traditional diagnosis. Traditional diagnosis is a particular type of diagnosis that has been used in India so long that we have had TB protection or TB detection mechanisms. These traditional diagnoses are century old. They are very old mechanisms or very old diagnostic systems. The thing is, this will not work. Why this will not work? And these are very old. These are a century old things, and these do not capture drug resistance. These TB only check for TB and do not capture drug resistant TB. When you capture drug resistant TB, you can get into further issues. Like your regimen, your tablet regimen or your treatment regimen will change depending upon whether the TB is drug resistant or not. But this traditional diagnosis, it will not capture drug resistance, and it will only say 50% of the time it will be correct. So the false positive or false negative is 50%. 50% is that. So yes, these are the ways. So we can find the gap, right? WHO said around 190,000 is faced with drug resistance, but what India says is that we have only 64,000 drug resistant TB patients. So here is this is what caused that gap. Traditional diagnosis, it will only say 50% of the time correct measurements or correct values. So yes, traditional diagnosis is another program. another challenge that has been marred, that has been a barrier or obstacle in our TB elimination program. So now what is the way forward? Way forward, yes, we have to address nutrition. We have a lot of programs. We have this Poshan scheme. We have this Nikshay Poshan program, especially for TB patients. So yes, such programs, yes, they are fruitful, they are beneficial. But what must be done is that whole of society approach must be undertaken. The thing is, not only TB patients nutrition must be included, but the nutrition of the entire country, the nutrition of the entire society must be improved. Best place to start will be from the local governmental level and then climb up to the top. So yes, a whole of society approach from the local governance side is very important, to address TB in India. So addressing undernutrition, and yes, we have already seen the reports, right? WHO has said 70% TB burden will increase in India if nutritious food is given to the patients, nutrition food is given to the people, and all these things. So addressing undernutrition is a very big thing, and it has to be done with immediate priority. The next is molecular diagnostics. WHO has advised or recommended states to move from traditional diagnosis to molecular diagnosis, because this particular diagnosis, it also captures drug resistance. And the errors are very less. The errors are in comparison or in relation to the traditional diagnostics. Molecular diagnostics resistance, they also capture resistance, but the error levels are very low. In comparison, they are very low. So moving on to molecular diagnostics will be a better way forward, to fill this to fill this data gaps that we saw as a challenge in our TB elimination program. And yes, BPAL regime, BPAL regimen is a combination of 3 drugs: bedaquiline, primanotonide, and linezolid. So BPAL, bedaquiline, pretomanid, and linezolid. These are the 3 drugs to be administered. Yes, WHO has suggested to move to this BPAL regimen. But India, we have not yet completely moved to this BPAL regimen, especially for drug resistant people. We have not moved to this BPAL regimen. We use a lot of injections, a lot of other tablets for treating TB in India, and we have not yet moved, or we have not transitioned to this BPAL regimen. So despite being one of the largest suppliers, in fact the only supplier of pretomanid, only 403 people in India, only 403 TB patients in India get pretomanid in their as their TB treatment, and bedaquiline, only 59% of the people, only 59% of TB patients in India get bedaquiline in their treatment. The mechanisms, or these are the improvements through which TB in India can be eliminated. So yes, this is how the article concludes. Thank you.